How's it going, everybody? As expected, the pushback against crossplay from console players is quite big. This is nothing new or out of the ordinary. We can see it in every single game that has it. I tried to explain this a few times in the past already, but the arguments seem to come full circle. So let me try again. It's up to you to either believe or continue to ignore it. The one main complaint is always that console does not want to play with PC. It's all gaming gods, sweats or cheaters on PC. Every time you face one, you automatically lose. Which is absolute nonsense. There are just as many bad players on PC as on any other platform. Believing otherwise is just living in a fantasy world. There are tons and tons of players that cannot parry your lights, that suffer just as much against spam. And you want to know why? Because that's the second argument I always hear. Everyone on PC has 3 billion frames. That's nonsense as well. There are tons of players with absolute trash cans as PCs. I can guarantee you that many play on even worse hardware than your old-gen consoles. They play on RuneScape graphics and still barely manage to get 40 FPS. What's more likely is that the majority plays on hardware that is older than that of new-gen consoles, and thus most likely have worse performance than the PS5 or Xbox whatever series. Seriously, Microsoft, you are shit at branding. So no, the statement that all PC players automatically are better than you is horseshit. Not just from a skill perspective, but also from a hardware one. We could go on a tangent now about socioeconomic factors and the distribution of platforms per age group and whatnot, but that's absolutely beyond the point. Most PC players only play on 60 FPS. The ones with 144Hz or 240Hz monitors make up only a tiny fraction of the player base. And guess what? All these 60 FPS PC gamers are already facing them. Hardware differences have existed in PC gaming for over 2 decades now. And they have existed in console gaming as well. The nonsense of competitive integrity that studios keep spouting and using as an excuse to not give more options to newer console models is exactly for that reason. You have different TVs, you have different internet connections. Someone with a lower ping has an advantage simply because they live closer to the service. Well, maybe not in For Honor, but that just puts the argument upside down, but in the end still holds true to the point I'm making. And it's even more of a factor nowadays. New gen console that you already match with currently, those do hold a significant advantage because the hardware isn't a fucking decade old. On top of that, we do have input delay tests. New gen has been tested, as well as old gen, and new gen is pretty much on par with input delay of the average PC, roughly 10 ms more, which might make a difference in edge cases, but it's nowhere close to the abomination that is old gen. And no business should make concessions to hardware that is on the way of being phased out. You do not waste money on that. And insisting on doing so portrays a major lack of judgment and is hopefully only done for brownie points. These changes are done for long-term growth or stability, however you want to see it when it comes to a game that goes into year 6. You do not aim for stagnation when you implement something like crossplay. There is no denying that the input delay is terrible on old gen, and it's also sad that transition to new gen has been plagued by many regrettable events in the last 2 years. But that doesn't make crossplay a bad feature. Enough about hardware, let's talk about how crossplay will actually affect everyone's playing experience, because it seems like everyone expects to only be put in lobbies with the players from top tier PC MMR. We know MMR gets reset next Thursday. That is the time when you can expect to have all different skill levels in a single lobby. What we also know is that we have skill-based matchmaking that will eventually either increase your MMR if you keep winning or adjust it downwards if you keep losing. So over time, lobbies will get more balanced. In case you face someone with hardware that severely outmatches yours and you lose against them, then the likelihood of facing them again just became smaller. For a matter of fact, the matchmaking pool for console players more than doubled, and the majority of that new pool is other console players once again. The PC player base is smaller, we've known that since the game has launched. which then means that for every new gen player that you previously had in your lobbies, 5 times as many old gen players will be available now, allowing the game to fill up lobbies with players of equal skill and equal hardware. This might include some PC players or really bad new gen players. Like I've highlighted before, just because you have better hardware, that doesn't mean you are better at the game. Everyone who tries to say that there aren't great players on old gen consoles is an absolute moron. Tons of them will be able to overcome the hardware differences and be put into lobbies with people that do equally well as them. Whether the factors why they are in this lobby are hardware related is irrelevant. A bad player with great hardware is still a bad player. You will outread them. You will realize that they go for light parries way too much. Having good hardware doesn't make the person less predictable. The fear of constantly having to face players with 400 FPS and sub 150 ms reaction times is an unsubstantiated one. These players make up a tiny fraction of the whole matchmaking pool. And now, with a much larger pool to begin with, your chances of facing them are minuscule. In my opinion, especially the middle skill bracket will benefit from this the most. A much bigger player pool allows for more fine-tuning and will hopefully result in better match quality. This requires for our skill-based matchmaking to actually work, and I will be the first to point it out if it doesn't. If you are still not convinced and want to turn crossplay off, then by all means. But I promise you this, you will be in the minority. You can see this in every single game that has crossplay. Apex, the new Battlefield, even Fortnite. If you opt out, your queues will be longer. Your match quality will be worse. It is a vocal minority that currently announces that they will opt out. You will not match with anybody that has opted in, and even if it only removes half of your previously available opponents. A number that is completely unattainable, by the way, as a max of, I'd say 10% will opt out in my opinion. You will complain now and then opt in a few weeks. I can promise you that. Or you quit, but not really leave and still annoy us with your nagging commentary from the peanut gallery. Fact is, yes, hardware differences do exist. With crossplay, they are as big as ever, but at the same time, granularity of skill-based matchmaking will allow for players of equal hardware and skill to be grouped together, which will lead to better match quality overall. This is not some feature that is thrown together willy-nilly, but each cogwheel is there for a reason. If it doesn't work, we will complain, but the fears currently presented by many are unsubstantiated or flat out wrong to begin with. This is a good change, no matter how you look at it. Throughout the years, I have not made a habit of lying to you guys, and I will not start now, just to pander to people who refuse to see the full picture. But it also doesn't mean that I am infallible and maybe the whole thing backfires massively. Well, that remains to be seen, and all we have right now are the numbers we see in other games who have already successfully implemented crossplay. For Honor, being a game with pretty much equality in terms of input method, should be a prime candidate to showcase to the rest of the industry how this feature can enhance the fun and longevity of a game. Players need to put their preconceptions to the side and actually give the skill-based matchmaking a chance to work out the rough start that we, without a doubt, will have. In the long run, this should benefit everybody though, no matter the hardware, no matter the skill level. Thank you for coming to my pep talk. I hope this video was interesting. Thanks for watching. Laters everybody.